ותעופו מפה. תעופו מפה כמה שיותר מהר. זה הר ציון וזה מקום של העם היהודי, וכל רגע שאתה פה זה גזלה. ואל תבלבל לנו את המוח.
תצא מפה
אני
וזהו.
לא רואה אותך ממטר, שמעת אותי? יאללה, תן גז.
כן?
תן גז. קדימה, תן גז.
Rapture signs are happening in Israel, indicating the fulfillment of age-old prophecies. Are these strange signs in Israel hinting at an impending mystery? Join us in this video to witness the enigmatic rapture signs we have discovered, causing intrigue and what secrets they hold. Here we begin. The first rapture sign that happened in Israel was the reconstruction of the Third Temple. The Third Temple is a special and holy place people want to build in Jerusalem. They think it's even more important than the old temples that were destroyed in the past. Even though it hasn't been built yet, it's very important in Judaism, especially for Orthodox Jews. They believe it's the most sacred place for them to worship. Starting in 1987, a group called the Temple Movement began getting ready to build the Third Temple. They've been working slowly to make this happen in the 21st century. Most people in modern Israel and many Jews around the world aren't very religious, but the Orthodox Jews are serious about this. They think it's a spiritual job, so they don't want non-religious people to help. They're the ones who brought back the Sanhedrin, a religious group in charge of the temple rules. They want to rebuild the temple the right way. For Orthodox Jews, rebuilding the temple is super important because they believe it's part of making the world better. They think the world can only get better if the temple is rebuilt. Gershon Salomon is the head of the Temple Mount Faithful, a group trying to get people in Israel excited about rebuilding the temple. They've done protests at the temple site, made a special cornerstone for the Third Temple, and even created stuff for the temple. Salomon says that building the Third Temple is necessary to finish making things right for the people in the Bible who live in the Holy Land. The Sanhedrin, the religious group in charge of temple stuff, has been getting ready for the temple service. They're doing things like planting a special forest with plants needed for the Third Temple. Rabbi Hillel Weiss, who talks for the Sanhedrin, says the temple connected the land to God. When we think about sacrifices, we usually think about animals and blood. But most of the sacrifices use plants that grew in Israel. The reconstruction is getting closer with the discovery of an ancient temple beneath Temple Mount. Although it was once thought that no temple was on the site, an unexpected discovery changed things. In 1927, a powerful earthquake struck Jerusalem, causing extensive damage, including to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. To restore the mosque, the Muslim WAQF, led by Grand Mufti Haj Amin al-Husseini, allowed archaeological investigations on the usually restricted Temple Mount area. During this unusual opportunity, Robert Hamilton, director of the Antiquities Department in pre-state Israel's mandatory period, partnered with Muslim clerics to conduct research where the mosque had collapsed. However, Hamilton's cooperation had limitations, and he left out findings that might upset the Muslim community. Surprisingly, many of his discoveries date back to periods before Muslim rule, such as the Second Temple and Byzantine eras. These findings remained hidden for decades but are now emerging. Nearly 80 years later, Israeli archaeologists Dr. Gabi Barkai and Zachi Dvira revisited Hamilton's hidden findings. They sifted through tons of earth removed from the Temple Mount about 13 years ago, uncovering countless small archaeological items that shed light on Jerusalem's history. Among the discoveries was a Jewish mikveh, a ritual purification pool from the Second Temple era, likely used by Jews before entering the temple grounds. Many small items from the times of the First and Second Temples were also found. Hamilton's findings included remains of a Byzantine mosaic beneath the damaged mosque's floor. De Vere found mosaic stones, column fragments, and evidence of a Byzantine-era church, 324, 638 CE, in the earth from the Temple Mount. These findings challenge previous beliefs, suggesting that the Temple Mount wasn't empty during the Byzantine era, but likely had structures, perhaps even churches, at that time. And further, another prophecy is fulfilled with the arrival of red Heifers in Israel. A sign of end times, the recent appearance of 5 red Heifers in Israel has sparked worldwide discussion, particularly among Christians who believe in biblical prophecy. These Heifers are considered significant because they meet the requirements outlined in the Mosaic Law for sacrifice, as described in Numbers 19. According to this law, the Heifers must be red in color and free of any blemishes. For many Christians, there's a belief that a third temple will be built in Jerusalem during the end times. The arrival of these red heifers in Israel has fueled speculation about the possible fulfillment of this prophecy. The Book of Numbers provides specific instructions regarding the red heifer. God commands the children of Israel to obtain an unblemished red heifer that has never been yoked or used for work. This heifer is then sacrificed and burned outside the camp. Additional items like cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet yarn or wool are added to the fire during the ritual. The ashes from this process are collected and mixed with pure water. The purpose of the red heifer offering is to purify individuals who have become ritually contaminated through contact with a dead body. The water containing the ashes is sprinkled on the contaminated person on the 3rd and 7th day of their purification, using a bunch of hyssop. It's worth noting that the priest who performs the red heifer ritual becomes ritually impure and must purify himself and his clothes in flowing or living water until evening. According to Jewish tradition, the ashes of the red heifer mixed with water are crucial for purifying Jews to enable them to serve in the temple. Over approximately 1,000 years, only 9 red heifers were used for this purpose during the times of the first and second temples. Tradition holds that the 10th will be used by the Messiah. To meet these requirements, the Temple Institute and an Israeli cattleman are collaborating to implant frozen embryos of red Angus cattle into Israeli domestic cattle. This groundbreaking project combines ancient religious texts with modern science to bring this prophecy closer to reality. Different communities have various perspectives on the arrival of the red heifers. The Orthodox Jewish community in Israel sees it as a step toward restoring temple services in Jerusalem, even before the construction of the third temple. They celebrate this event with blessings, songs, dances, toasts, and shofar blowing. Others view the arrival of the red heifers as significant, emphasizing Jerusalem's importance as the chosen place of God and the future restoration of a house of prayer for all nations, as mentioned in Isaiah 56:7. They consider the potential use of these heifers in reinstating temple services as a remarkable development. And recently, after finding the ancient temple and arrival of the red heifer, the ceremony of the third temple was held. On October 12th, an ancient water ceremony was reenacted at an old temple, drawing hundreds of participants. Led by Kohanim, priests in special attire, and accompanied by Levites playing musical instruments, the ceremony began at Shahar Hashpat in Jerusalem's Old City. The crowd joined the priests and Levites in a joyous procession along ancient paths to reach Shiloh, also known as Siloam Springs, which was used during the time of the temple. During the parade, participants chanted and danced, and silver trumpets sounded at each stop, with notable rabbis overseeing the event. At Shiloh, a golden water jug was used to collect water, and the procession returned to the mountain summit. They set up a model altar and utensils decorated with large, leafy branches reminiscent of ancient temple traditions. The ceremony concluded with the priestly blessing and the Hakel ceremony, which occurs every 7 years. While the water libation isn't explicitly mandated by the Torah, it's part of Moses' oral tradition and is considered a joyful holiday. In the temple, the ceremony lasted for 15 hours, and celebrations continued throughout the night until the next morning when the temple service resumed. People from around the world came to participate in the Sukkot celebrations, turning it into an international day of worship. During the final 6 days of the Sukkot holiday, the water libation took place alongside the pouring of wine during the morning service. The Kohanim filled a flask with spring water and journeyed from the temple to the Shiloh spring at the base of Mount Moriah. 2 Kohanim then ascended the stone altar in the temple's inner courtyard and poured wine and water into designated holes created for this ceremony. What do you think of the mysterious rapture signs happening in Israel? Comment below and subscribe for more.